Have you ever felt like someone in your life just isn't right for you, but you're unsure whether to cut them off? Maybe you've ignored certain behaviors, thinking they're just small annoyances. But what if those actions are actually signs that God is trying to show you something important? What if the people who are draining your energy or making you doubt yourself are actually holding you back from living the life He's destined for you? It's time to take a closer look and discern the signs that God may be calling you to distance yourself from certain relationships. In this video, we'll uncover the 3 key signs that should never be ignored and how to protect your peace and purpose. Trust me, the clarity you'll gain will change your perspective and your life. We've all been there, stuck in a relationship, a friendship, or even a job, wondering why it just doesn't seem to work out. It's like holding on to something that's slowly slipping away. The thing is, sometimes we can't see the bigger picture, but God does. Just as we're unsure about the next step, He already knows the path ahead. The Bible reminds us that His ways are higher than ours, and trust in that plan can open doors we didn't know were there. Praying and reflecting on the relationships in your life can bring clarity. You may not see the purpose now, but trust me, God has already written your story. Think about it like this. You may be holding on to a person who's not meant for the journey ahead, but you can't let go. You're too invested, too familiar with them. However, God can see the future. He knows what you need to grow, to flourish, and to receive His blessings. Sometimes, the toughest decisions are the ones that push us forward. When you pray for discernment, it can help you see the truth in your relationships and make the choices that align with His will for you. We often try to control the situation because we're afraid of what might come next. Letting go seems terrifying, but holding on to the wrong person is like blocking blessings that God wants to send your way. If you're not careful, you might be creating an invisible wall around yourself, stopping God's miracles from reaching you. That's why prayer is so powerful. By communicating with God, you align yourself with His plans. God's vision for you is far better than the limited vision you have right now. You might think that removing someone from your life is harsh, but in reality, it's an act of love. It's like trimming a tree to allow it to grow even stronger. The Bible teaches us that sometimes God removes people because He has a bigger purpose for you that requires space, freedom, and room to breathe. If you're holding on to someone or something that's not aligned with your destiny, consider whether God is trying to free you. It's not about loss, but about making room for what truly matters. Let's look at an example from the Bible. Abraham had to let go of Lot. It wasn't easy, but God had a specific plan for Abraham, and Lot was in the way. God knew that Lot's presence wasn't aligned with the blessings He wanted to pour out on Abraham. Similarly, when God asks you to step away from certain people, it's not punishment, it's protection. Trust that He sees the whole picture, and He is removing what's unnecessary to make way for something better. When God removes someone from your life, it's not always immediately clear why it's happening. But the truth is, sometimes He's protecting you from future harm. People come into our lives for a season, and some are meant to be temporary. By letting go, you're allowing yourself to grow without distractions. Stay close to God through prayer, asking for guidance and clarity. The future is in His hands, and He won't lead you astray. Opening your heart to this truth might take time. It's not about rejection, but about divine redirection. Every person and experience in your life plays a role, but sometimes the role of a certain person is over. Let go, pray for strength, and trust that God will lead you to people who will truly support your growth. With each relationship you release, you make room for deeper connections aligned with your purpose and divine calling. Have you ever felt like something was just off? You had a sense that blessings should be pouring into your life, but somehow it felt like the door was always closed. The truth is, people who aren't meant to be in your life can act as blockages, preventing God's blessings from reaching you. It's not always intentional, but their presence can distract you, take up your energy, and even pull you away from what God has planned for you. When you're surrounded by the wrong people, you can't see clearly enough to recognize the gifts God is trying to give. Take a moment to reflect. Are there people in your life who drain your energy more than they uplift you? Do they constantly bring negativity, uncertainty, or confusion? These people can unknowingly prevent you from stepping into the blessings and miracles God has in store for you. In the Bible, we see how the wrong associations can hold us back, even when we're on the right path. People can be like shadows that cloud our view of the light God wants to shine on our lives. Blessings often come in unexpected forms, sometimes as opportunities, sometimes as new relationships, or even as moments of peace and clarity. But if your life is filled with people who don't support your growth or align with God's purpose for you, these blessings can slip right by you. It's like trying to catch water with a sieve. You can't hold on to what's meant for you when there's too much distraction in the way. Prayer can open your eyes to this truth, helping you see who belongs in your life and who needs to go. The Bible teaches us that there's a time for everything, and sometimes that time is for letting go. When we cling to people who don't encourage us, we're essentially holding on to an obstacle. These people might be blocking not only your progress, but also the miracles God is waiting to send your way. Think of it like cleaning out a cluttered space. Once you clear out the old, you make room for the new. God's blessings often can't get through until the space is clear. Now, I'm not saying you should cut people off without cause, but when you feel that internal nudge, that sense that a relationship is holding you back, it's time to listen. God is calling you to step into something greater, and He wants to give you the blessings you deserve. Pray for wisdom, ask God to show you where to set boundaries, and trust that the right people will be in your life when the time is right. Letting go of the wrong people allows you to create space for what truly aligns with God's plan for you. It's not always easy to release people from your life, especially if you've known them for a long time. But sometimes you have to choose your own growth over the comfort of familiarity. When you trust in God's guidance and pray for strength, you'll see that releasing those people is a way of honoring both your life and the divine plan He has for you. Trust that every step you take in faith will lead you toward the miracles you've been waiting for. So, if you're struggling to recognize the signs, start by praying for clarity. Ask God to reveal the people who are truly meant to be a part of your life and the ones who are just occupying space. The right people will encourage your faith, lift you up, and walk with you through the storms. Remember, God's blessings flow where there's space for them to enter. Make room for what's meant for you, and watch how your life transforms. In the Bible, there's a powerful story that teaches us the importance of letting go when it's part of God's plan. Abraham's relationship with Lot is a perfect example of how sometimes even the people closest to us have to be released so that we can fully step into the blessings God has for us. At first, Abraham and Lot were together, and it seemed like they were a great team. But as time passed, it became clear that their paths were no longer aligned. Abraham had to trust that God's purpose for him was bigger than the comfort of holding on to Lot. Imagine Abraham's struggle. He had built a strong bond with Lot, who was like family. They had journeyed together, and Lot had been there through the challenges. But as their herds grew, it became impossible for them to remain together without conflict. Their relationship was starting to hinder their progress, and God knew it was time for them to part ways. Abraham's faith in God was so strong that he was willing to make the difficult decision to let Lot go, even though it hurt. God's plan for Abraham had room for only one, and that was Abraham's destiny alone. This moment is a perfect example of how sometimes the people we love most must be released for our own spiritual growth and progress. Just like Abraham, you might face situations where holding on to a person feels like you're being torn between love and obedience to God's will. But you must remember that God's purpose is always for your good. He sees the future, and sometimes He needs to remove people or things from your life to make room for what He has in store for you. Abraham didn't know what would come after he let Lot go, but he trusted in God's plan. The moment Abraham allowed Lot to choose where to go, God responded with a blessing. He promised Abraham that his descendants would inherit the land and that his legacy would be greater than he could imagine. By releasing Lot, Abraham made space for the fullness of God's promise. And just like Abraham, When you let go of relationships that no longer serve your purpose, you make room for God's abundant blessings to flow. In your own life, think about the relationships that may be holding you back. Is there someone whose presence is keeping you from fully embracing what God has planned for you? Sometimes, these relationships are not bad in and of themselves, but they might not be part of the divine blueprint for your future. Like Abraham, you may need to release them in order to walk in the fullness of God's will. The Bible is full of stories of people who had to make hard decisions for the sake of fulfilling God's purpose. Sometimes it feels like a sacrifice, but it's actually an act of trust. Abraham didn't understand everything that was ahead, but he knew God had a greater plan for him. You might not understand why you're being led to release someone, but trust that it's part of a divine redirection that will bring you closer to your true calling. So, when you find yourself in a situation where you feel torn between holding on and letting go, think of Abraham and how he trusted God's plan over his emotions. Let go of the things that are no longer aligned with your destiny and make room for God's blessings. Prayerfully ask God for the strength and wisdom to release those relationships that may be blocking your blessings, knowing that He is preparing you for something greater. Sometimes we find ourselves surrounded by people who just don't know when to take a step back. These individuals can be incredibly convincing, always pushing themselves into your life and convincing you that they're indispensable. The problem is, their constant presence and insistence on their importance can be like a slow poison, gradually draining your energy, peace, and focus. Their influence doesn't uplift you, it burdens you. In fact, it can be incredibly harmful to allow these types of people to continue occupying space in your life, especially when God has a plan that doesn't include their interference. We all know someone who's always present, always pushing, always trying to be the center of attention. At first, it might seem harmless, but over time, their actions begin to wear you down. They'll convince you that you need them, that your success or happiness is somehow tied to their involvement. The truth is, people like this often prey on your insecurities or your kindness, using it to gain control over your time and decisions. It's like being in a relationship where you're constantly being told you need to be something you're not. The Bible warns us about these types of toxic relationships because they don't allow us to fully be ourselves or to grow in the way God intends. When someone tries to force themselves into your life, it's essential to recognize that this can be a sign of manipulation. Their actions aren't coming from a place of genuine care. Rather, they're seeking to control the situation. This kind of relationship may seem appealing on the surface, but it's toxic. It steals your peace and distracts you from God's will for your life. In order to experience the full blessings God has prepared for you, it's necessary to remove the toxic influences. The more you give in to their demands, the more you close the door to new opportunities and the blessings God wants to send. Think of it like a garden. You're planting seeds for your future, seeds of growth, faith, and success. But someone who insists on staying in your garden, trampling over your carefully nurtured plants, is only stifling your growth. This is why the first sign that God might be removing someone from your life is when they try to force themselves into spaces they don't belong. In your life, there are people who should be spectators, not players. When someone tries to become the center of your world, it's time to assess their impact and consider whether they're helping or harming you. A practical step to deal with people who try to force themselves into your life is setting healthy boundaries. It's not always easy, especially when these people are persistent, but boundaries are a way to protect your peace and your purpose. When you pray for wisdom and strength to establish those boundaries, you align yourself with God's guidance. Trust that He will give you the courage to say no to people who are taking more from you than they are giving. In this way, you allow God's blessings to flow freely in your life, without obstruction. Remember, it's okay to let go of relationships that no longer serve you. It doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you someone who is actively choosing to walk in God's purpose for your life. Be vigilant about who you allow to occupy space in your heart, because when someone tries to force themselves into your life, they might be keeping you from fulfilling your true calling. Trust in God's plan. and be open to removing anything that stands in the way of your divine blessings. So if you recognize someone in your life who's trying to push themselves into your personal space, take a moment to reflect. Ask yourself, are they truly adding value to your life, or are they draining it? God is giving you the strength to stand firm in your boundaries, so don't hesitate to protect your peace. Let go of the people who are poisoning your life and make room for the blessings that are waiting to enter. It can be tough when someone you trust starts questioning who you are, or worse, makes you feel guilty for simply being yourself. People who do this often cause confusion, making you second-guess your identity and decisions. This is a subtle form of manipulation and control, and it can feel like a constant tug-of-war inside. If someone in your life is making you feel guilty for standing in your truth, it's a sign that their presence is more harmful than helpful. You deserve to be surrounded by people who support and affirm who God created you to be, not those who make you feel less than. We all want to be accepted and loved for who we are. But when someone tries to distort your character, it's a red flag. The Bible teaches us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and no one has the right to make us feel inferior for living authentically. If you've ever been in a relationship where you constantly feel like you're walking on eggshells, that's a clear indication that the relationship is toxic. People who challenge your character or criticize your actions without understanding your heart are simply not helping you grow. They're causing you to shrink. Think about the times when you've stood firm in your beliefs or made decisions that felt right for you, only to have someone question your choices or try to guilt-trip you into changing. These moments are powerful indicators that the relationship might not be aligned with your purpose. People who truly care for you will support your growth and encourage you to be your authentic self, even when it's not convenient or easy. If someone consistently tries to make you feel guilty for doing what's best for your life, it's time to reevaluate their place in your life. Let's take an example. In the Bible, Peter was often questioned about his actions and beliefs, especially when he was standing strong in his faith. Jesus didn't shy away from confronting those who tried to shame or question his disciples. He encouraged them to stand firm and be true to their calling. Similarly, when you face pressure from others to compromise your values, God calls you to stay strong in your identity. Prayerfully consider who's questioning your decisions and whether their opinions are leading you toward or away from God's plan for your life. It's natural to want approval from those around you, but when their approval comes at the cost of your true self, it's not worth it. Ask yourself, are these people helping me become the person God created me to be, or are they making me doubt who I am? If it's the latter, it's time to step back and create some distance. Praying for discernment will give you the clarity to see who is truly supportive of your journey and who is just pulling you away from your purpose. Removing people who constantly undermine your self-worth is an act of self-care and self-respect. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and if someone is draining your confidence and making you feel less than, you need to protect your peace. Just as Jesus rebuked those who tried to lead others astray, you must protect your identity and stand firm in who you are, regardless of what others think. God's love for you is unconditional, and He wants you to flourish in the fullness of your true self. So, if you find yourself feeling guilty or questioning your decisions because of someone's negativity, it's time to pray for clarity and guidance. Trust that God will reveal the truth to you, and He will show you who is meant to walk with you and who is holding you back. Removing these toxic influences will open up space for the right people to enter your life. People who will help you grow into the person God intended. One of the clearest signs that someone doesn't belong in your life is when they start intruding into your personal space, making decisions on your behalf, or overstepping boundaries that should be respected. Our privacy and autonomy are sacred, and when someone repeatedly disregards that, it's a sign that their presence is more of a hindrance than a help. They may claim to know what's best for you, but the truth is, God has given you the freedom to make your own choices, and anyone who tries to control or manipulate that is not acting in your best interest. It's easy to fall into the trap of allowing people to make decisions for us, especially when they present themselves as knowing better. They might disguise their control as care, constantly helping you make choices, even the small ones. While it's one thing to seek advice, it's another when someone starts dictating what you should or shouldn't do. When this happens, it's time to step back and reclaim your autonomy. God gave you the ability to choose, and allowing others to steal that freedom not only hurts your growth, but can also prevent you from following the path He's laid out for you. Think about the times you've had someone try to make decisions for you, whether it's about your career, relationships, or even your personal beliefs. It might feel like they're being protective or caring, but in reality, they're suffocating your ability to listen to God's voice and follow your own instincts. Every time you allow someone to make choices for you, you're letting go of your power. And when you lose that power, you start to feel lost, disconnected from your true purpose. It's important to recognize this behavior as a form of control, and in those moments, you need to ask God for the strength to stand firm. In the Bible, we see how the Apostle Paul often faced individuals who tried to control his actions, questioning his decisions and trying to influence his path. Paul knew the importance of being led by the Holy Spirit and standing firm in his calling. Similarly, you must be vigilant about who you allow to lead you astray from your true purpose. Prayerfully consider the relationships where your decisions are being overshadowed by others' opinions. If someone's influence is taking away your ability to follow God's will, it's time to create healthy boundaries. You have a responsibility to protect your freedom and privacy, especially when it comes to your relationship with God. When someone repeatedly intrudes into your space or makes decisions on your behalf, it's a sign that their influence is too strong. God has a purpose for your life, and the more you allow others to take the reins, the further away you get from fulfilling that purpose. By setting boundaries and reclaiming your decision-making power, you're aligning yourself with God's will and making room for His blessings to flow freely. Practical steps to take in situations like this include asserting your boundaries clearly and confidently. Let the person know when their involvement is crossing the line, and if they refuse to respect your autonomy, it might be time to reconsider the relationship. Prayer for discernment is key in these situations, as God will help you navigate the difficult task of cutting ties with those who are infringing upon your personal space. Remember, setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary for your well-being and your ability to follow God's plan for your life. When you cut off the people who try to control or intrude into your life, you're not being unkind or harsh. You're protecting your peace and your freedom. God's plan for you is full of opportunities, and those opportunities require space to grow. So if you find that someone is robbing you of your freedom to choose, it's time to let go and trust that God will guide you in the direction you're meant to go. One of the most dangerous and subtle types of people you can encounter is the manipulator. Those who know exactly how to play on your emotions and insecurities to get what they want. These individuals may present themselves as caring or concerned, but in reality, they are only interested in using you for their own benefit. They might promise the world, only to turn their back when it no longer serves them. The manipulative person is toxic, and God is calling you to recognize the signs and distance yourself from them to protect your peace and purpose. Manipulation is not always easy to spot. Sometimes it comes wrapped in the guise of friendship, love, or concern. They might offer help, but it always comes with strings attached, and before you know it, you're feeling guilty for not reciprocating in ways that drain you. The manipulator will make you feel like you owe them something. Your time, your energy, or even your happiness. But this is not the kind of relationship God has designed for you. God wants you to be surrounded by people who genuinely care for you, not those who use your kindness as a tool to get ahead. In your life, you may have experienced someone who always seems to know how to get you to do what they want, whether it's for personal favors or simply to control you. This kind of manipulation can be emotionally exhausting and spiritually draining. You might find yourself second-guessing your decisions, feeling like you can never do enough, or always trying to live up to unrealistic expectations. But the truth is, Manipulators thrive on your insecurities, and they use them to keep you trapped in a cycle that benefits them, not you. The Bible speaks about the importance of discernment when it comes to people who would lead us astray. Jesus warned his disciples about false prophets, those who would deceive and use others for their own gain. Similarly, we are called to be vigilant and wise in recognizing people who try to manipulate us. When you find someone who is constantly trying to use your good heart for their own selfish purposes, it's time to step back and reevaluate their place in your life. Trust that God will give you the wisdom to see these toxic influences for what they are. Manipulative people can often be difficult to distance yourself from, especially when they've been in your life for a long time. But the longer you allow them to manipulate you, the more you're allowing them to block your path to the divine blessings God has in store for you. When you remove these toxic influences, you open the door for healthier, more uplifting relationships that encourage your growth and strengthen your connection with God. You deserve to be in relationships where love is unconditional, not transactional. A key to recognizing and cutting ties with manipulators is to trust your gut. When something doesn't feel right, or you find yourself constantly compromising your values or well-being, it's time to pray for clarity. God will reveal the truth to you and give you the strength to take action. Setting boundaries with manipulators might be difficult at first, but it's essential for your spiritual and emotional well-being. Don't be afraid to take a stand and protect your heart from those who would only take and never give. Ultimately, when you let go of people who manipulate you, you are freeing yourself to fully embrace God's purpose for your life. You're making space for authentic, life-giving relationships that will help you grow and thrive. So if you notice someone trying to manipulate you for their own gain, take a moment to pause and reflect. Trust that God is leading you to a better place, and trust that He will equip you with the wisdom to distance yourself from toxic influences. As we've discussed, recognizing the signs that someone is holding you back is crucial for your spiritual growth and peace. Whether it's people who poison your life with manipulation, make you question your worth, or intrude on your personal space, God is guiding you toward relationships that empower you. The real question now is, are you ready to make the tough decisions and distance yourself from those who don't serve your divine purpose? It's time to reflect on your relationships. Who's truly adding value to your life, and who's taking away your freedom and peace? Remember, the power to create space for your blessings lies in your hands. When you trust God, set boundaries, and prioritize your well-being, you open the door to a life full of purpose, joy, and meaningful connections. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you can continue learning how to walk in alignment with God's plan for your life. Your best days are ahead. Let's keep growing together.